There are some tracks that have what we call wings of their own. And that really means, a track that with a certain amount of promotion would normally get 100,000 plays, this track will just get 1 million plays. And other people will start uploading it, and it'll appear all over YouTube. And some tracks just have those wings, we can be the catapult, we can be the launching pad, but once it's in the air, it's gotta fly.
Welcome back to Doc's Booth. As you may know, we've set up a competition between 6 Ren reactors who also rap. Plus we have 2 fantastic producers, also from the Reniverse. If you've been watching the channel, you will have already been introduced to our participants and producers. But I also promised a panel of industry experts, and it's time to meet the first one.
Ethan Baer is a name you may well be familiar with. He often gets tagged in Ren's Rabbit Hole Facebook group when someone has a query about copyright. And it's true that Ethan's company, Rebel Creator Services, handles the fair use claims for Reactors. Rebel Creator Services provides elite YouTube digital rights management, paid media marketing, brand partnerships and content, channel strategy for a boutique roster of top-tier artists and creators generating over 1.5 billion monthly views, and over 500k new subscribers each month. But perhaps unbeknown to many, Ethan is a respected music industry veteran in his own right.
The ultimate goal as a musician, is to get your music heard. And I think, if anything, the streaming era and Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube, it makes it, if anything, easier to be heard, and it requires less money to get heard by more people.
Yeah.
So I think that it is and has already fundamentally changed the game, and I think the system will adapt. But I think it's really cool that the focus has become really getting the music heard. And if you can get the music heard by enough people, there's gonna be the payout, and streaming is catching up. I think it's gonna be an incredible revenue generator for labels that adapt to it. And I think it puts a lot more power in the hands of the artist. Not needing that $1 million to put together an album puts so much power in the hands of the artist. They're not beholden to the money, so to speak.
Power and responsibility.
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
because
Do you want to know what's crazy? That clip was Ethan talking 8 years ago about the future of independent musicians promoting themselves online. You can see how and why he was attracted to Ren. But do you want to hear something even crazier? The title of that video is Ethan Baer, on Ren Man Live. And Ren Man Live was nothing to do with our sick boy, but rather a series hosted by a chap called Steve Rennie, longtime music industry veteran and former Incubus manager. Ethan is well known within the electronic music community through his work as founder and former CEO of EDM.com, which he launched in 2013 and grew to over 2 million monthly visitors. While at the company, he established relationships with major brands such as Red Bull, Tidal, Insomniac, ID&T, Live Nation, Pioneer DJ, and SiriusXM. Baer also oversaw the growth of the company's social network, following to over 10 million.
So it wasn't EDM.com initially.
Right.
It was it went from Subsynthesis to dubstep.net.
Yeah.
And then from dubstep.net to house music or house.net, electro.net, drumandbass.net. So a lot of different electronic genres, .net. So it was the .net network. And eventually the EDM network. And I can't name like a specific point where it was like, okay, we've made it. Everything's gonna be downhill from here, downhill in terms of being easier. I guess that wasn't really not the best way to explain it. But I think the first time to me that it seemed like things were really happening was SoundCloud. When you're on SoundCloud, you can see your total stats. So like how many people have listened to your songs and how many different users have listened. And we broke 10 million. Total listens on our SoundCloud account for dubstep.net.
Yeah.
And that just seemed so huge to me. I mean, and it is huge. Obviously, in this kind of culture, we see all these huge numbers on Spotify and YouTube, and they're talking about, the first track broke 1 billion streams, and so people are a little bit, I feel, so inundated with big numbers that you kind of are numb to some of it sometimes. But for me, breaking 10 million was like a huge milestone. And I remember sharing a screenshot of that with all my friends and sending it to my parents. And that was a very meaningful moment to me.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. The problem with that, though, is if you're only featuring basically illegal music,
Sure.
You can't make any money off of that.
Right.
It's cool, and they're big numbers, and you can put it on your fridge, get a magnet or something,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean much.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. So,
No, I just wanted like that perspective of like 10 million.
yeah.
And kind of where that goes.
Ethan previously served as the CEO of the Artist Intelligence Agency, formerly the EDM Network, a record label and music promotion company that generated over 100 million monthly streams for emerging talent from around the world. Ethan was the executive director at Indie Music Group, Indie Music Publishing, a record label group and publishing company comprised of 15 label imprints with a collective catalog in excess of 4,000 recordings with a total of over 800 million streams worldwide.
Yeah, so
And when do other people start noticing what you guys had?
yeah, so that's actually an interesting question. So I would probably break that into a very interesting turning point for us. And that was early on, getting music to feature on the network was always a matter of reaching out to artists.
Yeah.
So even though we were featuring a lot of bootlegs and, music with uncleared samples and, as I said before, illegal music, even though we were doing that, it was very important for the artist to say that they were okay with us featuring it.
Yeah.
We wanted the artist to be excited and to support it. So at the beginning, it was always me reaching out to these artists. Always. I would spend all day looking for new songs and trying to find stuff that I thought was a fit for our platform. And then at the end of every day, I'd reach out to like 50 people. And then we'd get, 5 responses. And those would be the songs we'd feature the next day. And at some point, that switched. And so many people were reaching out to me that I didn't have much time to reach out to artists anymore. And I guess I would say that's kind of the turning point where the phone started ringing, so to speak.
Yeah.
At that point, it was just artists. And they were mostly small artists that saw what we were doing and wanted support for their music. In terms of the phone ringing on a more kind of business level of people wanting to work with us, I would say that really happened when we purchased EDM.com. Maybe there was some before that, but that was a big turning point because the term EDM was becoming very big at the time.
Yeah.
I think we launched EDM.com on January 1st, 2013.
Okay.
And so that was kind of right at the peak.
Yeah.
The beginning of the peak. It lasted a couple years of that term being really strong.
Sure.
And that really we referred to it as the calling card. As soon as that website was up, from then on, like the phones were ringing.
Ethan recently did a stint as Senior Vice President, Business Development, Head of Electronic at Create Music Group, and has also acted as a volunteer consultant for Peace Tones, where he assisted in the licensing, release and administration process of the 2019 The World United in Psalm charity compilation album. He is currently devoting his time to Rebel Creator Services, as well as his consulting firm Bare Necessities, Inc. I'll just end by saying it is a real honor to have someone of Ethan's caliber involved in this project, especially someone from the Reniverse. Let's fucking go.